The CEO, Ethan Hale, entered the lobby of his towering glass headquarters the same way he always did, focused, silent, and wrapped in the armor of leadership. But as he passed the front desk, he heard a tiny whisper, soft enough to be mistaken for an echo. A little girl stood beside the security gate, clutching a worn school backpack and twisting the sleeves of her faded sweater. Her round eyes followed her mother, a cleaning woman coughing into her elbow as she pushed a supply cart. Something about the little girl's expression, fear mixed with hope, made Ethan stop for the first time in years. He knelt slightly, adjusting to her level. "Are you lost?" he asked gently, but the girl shook her head. "My mommy is sick," she whispered, her voice trembling like cold glass. "But she still works, because if she stays home again, they said they'll replace her." Ethan felt a sharp, unexpected pressure in his chest. The mother didn't notice them. She kept wiping the lobby floor slowly, carefully, as if every step cost her a breath. Ethan had seen employees work through illness before, but never a woman one fainting spell away from collapse. "What's your name?" Ethan asked the girl. "Lila," she answered. Her small fingers tightened around the strap of her backpack. "Mommy says I must sit here quietly until she finishes. She didn't want to bring me, but I got scared at home." Ethan noticed dark circles under her eyes, the kind children shouldn't have. Something about this scene felt painfully familiar, though he couldn't yet place why. Lila's voice cracked. "Mommy didn't eat breakfast. She said we need to save food." Ethan swallowed hard. Ethan turned toward the cleaning woman, Maria, watching as she leaned against her cart, coughing uncontrollably. She steadied herself, pretending to be fine, and continued mopping. Ethan's jaw clenched. Memories flashed of his own mother years ago, working the night shift despite her fever, terrified of losing her job. He had spent nights hiding behind vending machines in lobbies just like this one. The scene was too familiar. Too close. He couldn't walk away. He stood up and approached Maria slowly. "Excuse me," he said. She jolted upright, recognizing him instantly, panic flickering across her face. "Mr. Hale, I'm sorry, sir, I'll finish the floors right away," she said through shallow breaths. He raised a hand softly. "You're ill," he stated, not accusingly but with genuine concern. Her eyes dropped. "It's just a small flu. I can work." Another cough shook her entire frame. "If I miss more shifts, we won't manage." Ethan told her to sit, guiding her toward a nearby bench. She resisted, terrified of losing the momentary illusion of strength. Lila rushed to her mother's side. Maria whispered, "Please, I need this job." Ethan felt something inside him snap. "You're not losing your job," he said firmly. "You're going to the company clinic." Maria looked up, disbelief trembling on her lips. She clearly thought this was a trick or a temporary offer. The clinic staff arrived quickly, but Maria hesitated to leave Lila behind. "She can stay with me," Ethan said, surprising even himself. Lila's eyes widened, fear mixed with new trust. Holding the CEO's hand suddenly didn't seem frightening. As Maria was helped away, she kept looking back at her daughter, silently apologizing for being too weak to stay. Lila whispered, "Please take care of her." Ethan nodded. Ethan escorted Lila to his office, an enormous space with floor-to-ceiling windows. She looked around in awe, then shrank a little, feeling out of place. He offered her a warm drink, but she shook her head politely. "Mommy says not to waste anything." Her voice was so small, it dissolved into the room. Ethan gently placed the cup in her hands anyway. "It's not waste," he said softly. "It's for you." As she warmed her hands on the cup, Ethan asked, "Does your mother work this sick often?" Lila nodded. "She always works, even when she can't breathe. She says strong mommies don't get to rest." The phrase sliced through him. He remembered his own mother saying something similar, her shaking hands, her voice breaking when she thought he was asleep. He felt an old guilt resurface, one he had buried beneath years of success. The phone rang, an update from the clinic. Maria had pneumonia, severe. She needed immediate medical care and mandatory rest. Ethan's hand tightened around the receiver. If she had worked another day like this, she could have collapsed permanently. He looked at Lila, who stared back with terrified eyes, reading the truth on his face before he spoke. "Is Mommy okay?" she whispered. "She will be," Ethan said gently. She's getting treatment now. Lila covered her face with her hands, silent sobs shaking her shoulders. Ethan carefully knelt beside her, unsure how to comfort a child he'd only just met. But the instinct was natural. He placed a steady hand on her back. She leaned into him, trusting him with a kind of desperate innocence. The office felt strangely small, as if everything important in the world was happening in this moment. Hours passed. Lila eventually fell asleep on the sofa, exhausted. Ethan covered her with his jacket, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. He found himself wondering how many children, how many workers, he had unknowingly overlooked in his own company, people who hid their suffering behind quiet endurance. The realization felt like an indictment. When Maria awoke in the clinic later, she panicked at first, asking for her daughter. The nurses assured her that Lila was safe with Mr. Hale, the CEO. She asked, barely believing it. Ethan arrived soon after to tell her in person. Maria tried to sit up but swayed. "Sir, please, don't fire me." Tears filled her eyes. "I can work again soon, You're not being fired," Ethan interrupted gently. "You're getting fully paid medical leave. And when you return, your work conditions will change." Maria stared at him, stunned. "Why would you do this?" she whispered. He hesitated, unsure whether to reveal the truth about his past. "Because no one should have to work themselves to death to survive. Not anymore. Not here." Maria covered her face, overwhelmed. Ethan assured her that Lila was comfortable, safe, and had eaten. Maria cried harder at the last part, proof of how long she had been silently sacrificing. Ethan promised that the company would provide childcare assistance until she recovered. Even then, it didn't feel like enough. Back in his office, Lila woke up slowly. "Mommy," she whispered, confused. Ethan sat beside her. "She's getting much better. You can see her soon." Lila looked relieved but drained. "Will she lose her job?" Ethan shook his head. "No, not ever, because she's sick." Lila stared at him for a long moment. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible. As day turned to evening, Ethan took Lila to visit her mother in the clinic. Maria reached out weakly, brushing her daughter's cheek with trembling fingers. Lila hugged her tightly but gently, afraid to hurt her. "You're safe," Lila whispered, echoing words she had never heard but had always needed. Ethan stood back, watching an image he knew he would carry with him forever. Ethan arranged transport to take Maria to a nearby hospital for extended care. He personally ensured the company covered all expenses. Lila held his sleeve as they walked through the hallway. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. He paused. "Because someone once helped me when I needed it. And because your mommy is important." Lila looked up. "To you," Ethan nodded. "To the world." A few days passed. Ethan checked on them daily, something entirely unlike him. He sent groceries, medications, and even arranged a tutor for Lila during school hours so Maria could rest. The staff whispered about the new CEO, shocked by the transformation. But Ethan didn't care. He felt like he was finally doing something that mattered. When Maria grew stronger, she asked Ethan why he had changed policies across the entire company. Mandatory sick leave, healthcare upgrades, child support programs, emergency leave protections. Ethan answered simply, "Because no one should choose between survival and dignity." Maria didn't argue. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to smile. On the day Maria was discharged, Lila ran straight into Ethan's arms before he had time to react. He caught her, startled by how natural it felt. "Mommy's coming home," she cheered. Ethan lowered her gently, smiling, something his employees rarely saw. Maria approached slowly, still weak but full of gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "Just get better," Ethan replied. "And let Lila bring joy into the office once in a while." Lila giggled. Maria exhaled in relief. But Ethan had one more surprise waiting, an offer for Maria to move into a safer company apartment, rent-free until she stabilized. Maria covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes again, but this time from relief, not fear. Weeks later, Maria returned to work, not as a cleaning woman but as a supervisor with better pay and fewer hours. Ethan had insisted. She accepted with trembling disbelief. Lila visited after school often, bringing drawings to decorate Ethan's office. Most featured a tall man holding the hand of a little girl. Ethan kept every one of them. One afternoon, Lila asked, "Do you miss your mommy too?" Ethan froze. He hadn't spoken of his own mother in years. He nodded quietly. "Yes," he said, "very much." Lila squeezed his hand. "Then maybe helping my mommy is like helping her too." The simplicity of her wisdom hit him harder than any boardroom lesson or any business achievement ever had. Over time, employees across the company began to feel the effects of Ethan's changes. People weren't afraid to stay home when sick, to ask for help, to be human. The workplace slowly shifted from cold efficiency to compassion-driven productivity. And every time Ethan saw Maria healthy and smiling, he was reminded that one whisper had changed everything. One morning, Ethan arrived at his office to find a small envelope on his desk. Inside was a drawing. Lila, Maria, and Ethan standing together beneath the sun with the words, "Thank you for saving my mommy." His throat tightened. He placed the picture in a frame beside the skyline view, where sunlight could warm its colors each morning. Later that day, Ethan found Lila in the lobby waiting for her mother. She waved at him, her smile brighter than the chandeliers above. "Mommy is strong now," she said proudly. "Because someone finally told her she could rest." Ethan nodded. "She deserves that," he replied. Lila added softly, "And you deserve to smile too." As Maria arrived, now healthy and confident, she placed a hand on Ethan's arm. "You changed our lives," she said. "No," Ethan replied, glancing down at Lila. "Your daughter changed mine." And as he watched them walk out into the world, hand in hand, free of the fear that once shadowed their steps, Ethan realized that the smallest voices often carry the greatest truths. He had not just saved a family, he had found a part of himself he thought was forever lost.